What type of person makes every avoidant lose their emotional composure without even trying? I've seen this pattern countless times. Avoidants, those masters of emotional detachment and independence, have a secret weakness. There's one specific type of person who breaks through their defenses, occupies their thoughts, and creates an obsession they can't explain or control. Once you know what to look for, you'll see it everywhere. The first clue shows up in how avoidants talk about their past relationships. Ask them about the person who got away and watch their usual composure crack slightly. Ask about the relationship that confused them most, and you'll see something different in their eyes. Ask about someone they still think about despite claiming they've moved on, and the pattern becomes crystal clear. They're not obsessing over the person who chased them the hardest. They're not fixated on the most dramatic or passionate relationship. They're not haunted by the person who loved them most desperately. They're obsessed with the person who was completely inexplicably okay without them. When you dig deeper into what triggers avoidant fascination, you'll notice something interesting. It's not about what these people do. It's about what they don't do. Avoidants become captivated by people who don't need them, don't chase them, and don't seem affected by their hot and cold behavior. Here's what usually happens when an avoidant pulls back. Most people interpret this as rejection and respond with pursuit, explanation-seeking, or emotional drama. But every once in a while, an avoidant encounters someone who responds to their distance with nothing. No pursuing, no emotional breakdown, no attempts to bridge the gap they've created. This response doesn't just confuse avoidants, it captivates them. Think about it. When an avoidant becomes distant, most people see it as a problem to be solved, a distance to be closed, or a sign that they need to try harder. But secure partners operate from a completely different place. They simply continue living their lives, not out of hurt or spite, but because their happiness doesn't depend on someone else being available 24/7. This is foreign to avoidants because it's so rare in their experience. Most people in their relationship history have either chased them when they withdrew or punished them for needing space. The secure partner's unbothered response creates a puzzle the avoidant can't solve. What makes this even more fascinating is how avoidants respond to emotional consistency. Secure partners don't operate in the emotional extremes that avoidants are used to creating. They don't swing from intense pursuit to hurt withdrawal. They maintain the same warm but independent energy, regardless of what the avoidant is doing. This consistency becomes mesmerizing to avoidants because it's completely predictable yet impossible to control. They can't make secure partners chase them through withdrawal. They can't create emotional chaos through hot and cold behavior. They can't maintain power through unpredictability because secure partners aren't trying to gain power in the first place. Avoidants become obsessed with what they can't manipulate, not because they're consciously trying to manipulate people, but because their usual relationship moves simply don't work with secure partners. Here's something interesting I've noticed. Avoidants often describe secure partners as different from anyone else they've dated. They use words like mysterious, confusing, or hard to read, not because secure partners are playing games, but because their straightforwardness is foreign to avoidants who are used to complicated emotional dynamics. Now, let's talk about how avoidants interpret secure attachment behaviors. What secure partners see as normal, healthy relationship patterns, avoidants experience as fascinating complexity. A secure partner's ability to be close without being clingy looks like sophisticated emotional intelligence to an avoidant. Their capacity to give space without withdrawing emotionally seems like masterful relationship skills. Their tendency to communicate directly without hidden agendas feels refreshingly authentic. But here's the most captivating part. Secure partners genuinely don't care about the avoidant's typical strategies. They don't get hooked by mystery because they're not trying to solve anyone. They don't chase unavailable people because they're not trying to prove their worth. They don't take emotional distance personally because their self-worth doesn't depend on other people's validation. This indifference isn't strategic or calculated, it's natural, and that naturalness makes it impossible for avoidants to defend against or fully understand. When you observe avoidant behavior patterns around secure partners, something remarkable happens. Avoidants work harder for secure partners' attention than they've ever worked for anyone else's. They find themselves initiating contact more frequently. They make more effort to spend time together. They become more curious about the secure partner's life, thoughts, and feelings. They start sharing information about themselves without being asked. Most telling of all, they begin trying to create the kind of connection they usually avoid. They suggest deeper conversations. They make future plans. They integrate the secure partner into their daily life in ways that would normally feel suffocating. Why does this happen? Avoidants are used to being the prize that others pursue. When they encounter someone who's genuinely not pursuing them, their entire sense of value gets called into question. It's not that secure partners are rejecting them. Secure partners don't need to possess them to appreciate them. This eliminates the avoidant's usual dynamic of being wanted despite being unavailable. Instead, they're dealing with someone who enjoys their company when they're around and continues living their own fulfilling life when they're not. This creates completely new emotional territory for avoidants. Something else fascinating happens here. Avoidants often mistake secure partners' emotional health for some kind of sophisticated game playing. Because avoidants are used to relationships involving strategy, manipulation, or emotional extremes, they initially think secure behavior must be some kind of tactic. They think the secure partner is playing hard to get when they're actually just living their life. They assume the lack of pursuit is strategic when it's actually genuine disinterest in chase dynamics. They believe the emotional consistency is calculated when it's actually just natural emotional regulation. This keeps avoidants engaged longer than usual because they're trying to figure out the strategy behind behavior that has no strategy. They're looking for hidden motives in someone who operates without hidden motives. Let's get real about what avoidants actually want versus what they think they want. Consciously, most avoidants believe they want space, independence, and freedom from emotional demands. But their behavior around secure partners tells a different story. They want to be seen and appreciated without being needed. They want to be valued without being possessed. They want connection without suffocation. They want love without obligation. Secure partners naturally provide all of these things because they don't love from a place of neediness or insecurity. They love from abundance, which means they can appreciate someone without needing them to fill emotional voids. This type of love is addictive to avoidants because it's exactly what they've always needed but never experienced. It provides connection without triggering their fear of being trapped. It offers appreciation without demanding they be anything other than who they are. Years after relationships with secure partners have ended, avoidants continue to think about them, not with regret exactly, but with a kind of fascinated confusion. They compare every future partner to the secure ex. They wonder what that person is doing now. They occasionally reach out with casual messages that seem innocent but reveal ongoing preoccupation. Avoidants consistently describe secure exes as the one who got away, not because the relationship was perfect, but because it was the only relationship where they felt genuinely safe to be themselves while still feeling valued and desired. Here's something revealing about how avoidants remember these relationships. With most people, avoidants focus on what went wrong, why the person wasn't right for them, or how the relationship was too demanding. But when discussing secure partners, they focus on what was different about them, how they made the avoidant feel calm instead of anxious, how they seemed genuinely interested without being needy, how they created space for the avoidant to be authentic without pressure to be more emotionally available. Now here's the tragic part. Avoidants often sabotage relationships with secure partners, even when they're clearly happier in those relationships than any others. The very thing that attracts them, the secure partner's emotional independence, also threatens their sense of control. Avoidants are used to managing relationships through emotional distance and availability. When they can't control the emotional temperature of the relationship through their usual methods, they often create distance through other means, picking fights, finding flaws, or manufacturing incompatibilities. But even after sabotaging these relationships, they remain obsessed with the secure partners because they recognize deep down that they destroyed something rare and valuable. I've seen countless examples of avoidants who ended relationships with secure partners and then spent years trying to recreate that dynamic with other people. They look for partners who seem emotionally independent, only to discover that emotional independence without security often shows up as emotional unavailability rather than the healthy detachment they experienced with secure partners. The core of avoidant obsession with secure partners is this. These relationships offer a glimpse of what love could look like without the fear, anxiety, and power games that usually define avoidant relationship patterns. Secure partners don't trigger avoidant defense mechanisms because they're not trying to get anything from the avoidant that the avoidant isn't freely giving. They don't need the avoidant to be more available, more communicative, or more traditionally romantic. They appreciate what's offered without demanding more. This acceptance creates space for avoidants to be more vulnerable than they've ever been, which is simultaneously terrifying and addictive. They get to experience emotional intimacy without the usual pressure. Often, avoidants don't realize what they had with secure partners until after it's gone. During the relationship, they might have felt confused by their own behavior, why they were more open, more affectionate, more willing to make plans and commitments than usual. It's only when comparing future relationships that they recognize how safe and natural the connection felt with the secure partner. They realize they were more themselves in that relationship than in any other, which creates deep loss and regret. Avoidants aren't just obsessed with secure partners because of what those partners did or didn't do. They're obsessed because those relationships showed them a version of themselves they didn't know existed, more open, more connected, more capable of love than they believed possible. But let me tell you what most people don't talk about. The avoidance obsession with secure partners isn't just admiration. It's like being addicted to something they can never fully control. Here's where things get really interesting. Avoidants don't just want secure partners because they feel safe with them. They become obsessed because secure partners represent the ultimate challenge to their core identity. Every avoidant has built their entire sense of self around being the person who doesn't need anyone. Secure partners shatter this by making them feel genuine need for the first time in their adult lives. This creates a cycle that most people don't recognize. The more naturally loving and available the secure partner is, the more the avoidant craves them, and the more terrified they become of this craving. It's not fear of commitment, it's fear of their own capacity for emotional dependence. Avoidants describe physical symptoms around secure partners: increased heart rate, difficulty sleeping, feeling not like themselves. Many report feeling drugged or overwhelmed by actually wanting someone this much. Something else happens that's kind of messed up. Avoidants often become more distant with everyone else when they're involved with a secure partner. It's like they're compensating for the emotional vulnerability they feel in one relationship by shutting down more in all others. Friends and family frequently feel shut out when the avoidant is dating someone secure. Now here's the part that challenges everything you think you know about these dynamics. Avoidants don't just admire secure partners, they often resent them. The same emotional health that attracts them also triggers deep feelings of inadequacy and shame. You'll hear avoidants making subtle criticisms of secure partners that reveal this underlying resentment. They'll call them naive or simple, or suggest they don't understand how complicated relationships really are. This isn't conscious cruelty, it's psychological self-defense against feeling inferior. Avoidants often engage in unconscious attempts to make secure partners more anxious or insecure, not through obvious manipulation, but through subtle emotional withdrawal designed to create the chaos and uncertainty that would make the secure partner seem more normal to them. When these attempts fail, when secure partners remain consistently stable and loving despite provocation, the avoidance obsession intensifies. They can't understand how someone maintains emotional balance without the complex defense systems they've spent their whole life perfecting. Here's something that will blow your mind. Avoidants in relationships with secure partners often report profound changes in how they think and feel. It's like their entire emotional system gets rewired when they're consistently loved without conditions or games. But here's the crushing part. These changes are temporary if the relationship ends. Within weeks of separation from a secure partner, avoidants report feeling emotionally numb, unable to connect with anyone else the same way. They describe other relationships as feeling flat or meaningless in comparison. This creates what I call secure attachment withdrawal. It can last for years. Some avoidants report that no subsequent relationship has ever felt as natural or satisfying as their experience with a secure partner, creating a benchmark that's impossible for other partners to meet. The most fascinating part of all this is the paradox. The relationships that could actually heal avoidance are the same relationships they're most likely to sabotage. The safety and acceptance provided by secure partners creates space for avoidants to experience their deeper fears and traumas, feelings they've spent their lives avoiding. Many avoidants report that relationships with secure partners bring up childhood memories, family issues, and emotional wounds they thought they'd moved past. The secure partner's consistent love acts like truth serum, forcing the avoidant to confront parts of themselves they've kept hidden even from themselves. This is why avoidant obsession with secure partners feels both healing and terrifying. These relationships offer the possibility of genuine emotional growth, but that growth requires facing exactly what avoidants have organized their lives around avoiding: vulnerability, dependence, and the risk of being truly known. Understanding this dynamic reveals why avoidance seems so difficult to connect with for most people, but become completely different around secure partners. It's not that secure partners have magical powers. They naturally provide the exact emotional conditions avoidants need to feel safe enough for genuine intimacy. The truth is this: if you want to understand what makes an avoidant obsess over someone, look for the person who loved them without needing them, valued them without possessing them, and created safety without suffocation. Their obsession isn't just about love or attraction, it's about recognizing their own potential for transformation and being simultaneously drawn to and terrified of that possibility. But here's what really gets me about this whole dynamic. Society tells us that avoidants are commitment-phobic, emotionally unavailable people who just need to work on themselves. That's complete bullshit. The truth is, avoidants are capable of incredibly deep love. They just need the right conditions to access it. I've watched avoidants who seem completely emotionally dead suddenly come alive around secure partners. They start doing things that would make their friends' jaws drop. They plan surprise dates. They remember little details. They actually want to talk about feelings. It's like watching someone discover a part of themselves they never knew existed. The tragedy is that most people never see this side of avoidance because most people don't have secure attachment themselves. They're too busy trying to fix, change, or chase the avoidant to create the space where this natural intimacy can emerge. And here's something that might surprise you. Secure partners aren't trying to be irresistible to avoidance. They're not following some secret playbook or using reverse psychology. They're just being themselves, living their lives, loving from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. The fact that this drives avoidance crazy is almost accidental. This is why you can't fake being secure to attract an avoidant. Avoidants have incredible radar for emotional manipulation and neediness. They can smell desperation from a mile away. The only thing that truly captivates them is authentic emotional independence, and you can't pretend to have that. The saddest part of all this is watching avoidants settle for relationships that don't challenge them or help them grow, simply because those relationships feel safer and more predictable. They choose partners who chase them or need them because it maintains their sense of control, even though these relationships leave them feeling empty and disconnected. Meanwhile, they carry the memory of what it felt like to be truly seen and loved by someone secure, and they measure every future relationship against that standard. Most people never measure up, not because they're inadequate, but because they're operating from a completely different emotional framework. If you're an avoidant watching this and recognizing yourself, here's what I want you to understand. Your capacity for love isn't broken. You just need different conditions than most people to feel safe enough to access it. And if you're someone who's been involved with an avoidant, remember that their struggle with intimacy isn't about you. It's about their own journey toward emotional wholeness. Have you witnessed this dynamic between an avoidant and a secure partner? Drop a comment about what you observed in that relationship that was different from their other connections. If this helped you understand avoidant relationship patterns, like this video and subscribe for more insights into attachment dynamics. Thanks for watching.